What if the only way to save your home meant destroying everything that ever made it feel like one? That is the harsh reality unfolding in Heartland Season 20, where the ranch is no longer just struggling, it is slowly breaking under pressure that cannot be ignored anymore. For years, Jack Bartlett has been the man who protected this land with everything he had, believing that a ranch is not built on money but on memories, hard work, and loyalty that cannot be replaced. Every fence he fixed, every horse he trained, and every lesson he passed down created a legacy that feels untouchable. But now, for the first time, that legacy is being challenged by something he cannot fight with his hands: the future itself. Nathan arrives not as a villain, but as a man with solutions, walking into Heartland with confidence, data, and a plan that sees the ranch not as a home, but as a failing system that needs to be rebuilt before it collapses completely. From the moment he steps into the barn with his tablet full of numbers and projections, the tension becomes impossible to ignore, because this is no longer about small improvements, it is about replacing the way everything works. Nathan talks about efficiency, automation, and cutting costs, promising a future where Lou Fleming no longer has to stay awake at night worrying about bills and survival. But to Jack, every word sounds like an attack on the soul of the ranch, because this is not just business, this is identity. When Nathan calls the old systems outdated and suggests replacing the traditional methods with technology, Jack does not see progress, he sees erasure, a slow removal of everything that made Heartland what it is. The barn that once felt like a place of healing suddenly feels like a battlefield, and when Jack finally steps forward and tells Nathan that this is not a factory and never will be, the silence that follows carries more weight than any argument. Nathan does not back down, calmly pointing out that without change, there may not be anything left to protect, and that truth hits harder than anger ever could, because deep down, Jack knows the ranch is struggling more than he wants to admit. Watching all of this unfold is Lou, the one person who never expected to be standing in the middle of a war between the past and the future, realizing that both sides are right in their own way and that her decision will define everything that comes next. The situation escalates when Nathan reveals the full extent of his vision, introducing drones, sensors, and a completely digital system that tracks every movement on the ranch, presenting it as the only realistic way to survive in a changing world where tradition alone is no longer enough. But the real breaking point comes when Nathan unveils his biggest plan, a state-of-the-art training facility that promises to transform Heartland into something powerful and competitive, with one devastating condition: the old clinic has to be torn down to make space for it. That moment freezes everything, because the clinic is not just a building, it is a symbol of everything the ranch stands for, a place where lives were saved and where the emotional core of Heartland still exists. Nathan insists that without this step, the bank will take everything anyway, turning the argument into a countdown rather than a discussion, forcing Lou to face a truth she cannot escape, that no matter what she chooses, she is going to lose something that matters. As the sun sets and the tension reaches its peak, it becomes clear that this is no longer about choosing what is right, it is about deciding what is worth sacrificing to survive. Sometimes the hardest choices are not between right and wrong, but between two losses that both feel unbearable. And that is exactly where Lou Fleming finds herself, as the weight of the decision settles over Heartland like a storm that refuses to pass. That night feels heavier than any before, as if the land itself is waiting for an answer that will change everything. And instead of continuing the argument, Jack Bartlett chooses silence before taking Lou to a place filled with memories, the old hitching post where her story began, reminding her that Heartland was never meant to be just a business, but a home built on moments that cannot be recreated. In a quiet but powerful moment, he tells her that replacing everything will not save the ranch. It will only preserve the name while destroying its meaning. And those words land deeper than any financial argument, because they force Lou to see the emotional cost behind every decision. Then comes the moment that changes everything, when Jack gives an ultimatum that he never thought he would have to say, telling her that if she signs Nathan's plan, he will leave for good, because he cannot live in a place that no longer feels like home, turning the decision from a business choice into a deeply personal sacrifice. Morning arrives with a cold and unforgiving clarity, and Lou stands in the yard holding the papers while both men wait, one expecting progress and the other preparing for loss, creating a moment where time itself seems to slow down. Instead of choosing one side completely, Lou makes a decision that attempts to hold both worlds together, allowing modernization to touch the outer parts of the ranch while protecting the core, including the barn, the clinic, and everything that defines Heartland's identity. For a brief second, it feels like a solution, but that feeling does not last because Nathan sees it as failure rather than compromise, accusing Lou of letting emotion destroy a chance at survival before walking away and taking his funding with him, leaving behind a silence that feels louder than any argument. The aftermath hits quickly as reality replaces relief, with bills piling up, equipment failing, and the pressure of survival becoming impossible to ignore, forcing Lou into sleepless nights and pushing Jack to prove that the old ways are still enough, even as his strength begins to fade. A terrifying moment where Jack nearly collapses becomes the turning point that exposes the truth they were trying to avoid, that this was never a victory, but only a delay of something much bigger. The situation takes an even darker turn when Nathan returns, not as a partner, but as a rival, buying land nearby and starting to build his own version of the future right next to them, ensuring that the conflict between tradition and progress will not fade, but grow stronger with time. In the final moments, Lou stands alone, watching the rise of something she chose to reject, realizing that she protected the soul of Heartland, but may have put its survival at risk, leaving her with a question that has no easy answer about how long something built on tradition can survive in a world that refuses to slow down.